Did you know that since the 1940s, when Kenneth and Mamie Clark first conducted the doll test, that most black children tested chose the white doll? What do you think may be the factors leading to that outcome? The Clarks provided black children with a white doll and a black doll to choose as their preference. In most cases, since the 1940s up until 2016, most black children choose the white doll as having the best characteristics and the black doll as having the worst characteristics. These characteristics include which doll was the prettiest, which was nice, which was smart, which was bad, and which was ugly. The vast majority of the children chose the white dolls having all favorable qualities and the black dolls having all negative qualities. Given that it's been 75 years since this test was first created and that the statistics have not changed in terms of what preference the black children have had, I think it brings into critical question why in over 75 years. I mean, most recently, for example, we've had a black first lady and a biracial black identified president of the United States. And doll tests were done during his administration and they still came out the same. In this society, there are lots of things that are part of the landscape that black children have to endure that are not problematic for most children, but that are particularly problematic for black children. For example, even if an Asian child is put into the conditions that I will be describing, they might not be as at risk as a black child because most Asians come with their own last name that they've had for thousands of years. They come with a uninterrupted cultural context. When it comes to the Chinese, for example, that's been thousands and thousands of years. And they have a self-contained frame of reference that is there, regardless of what white supremacy-based influences might come into their experience. That's not true for black people. So for black children, in order to ensure that a black child is healthy in this society, there are intentional, deliberate factors that must be put in place to ensure that the child is healthy. And based on the outcomes of the past doll tests and current doll tests, parents overall have not been implementing those factors. So let's discuss what those factors look like. In terms of the importance of deliberate elements to consider when developing a black child to have a healthy self-concept, I'll give an example of a relative of mine. I have a young relative who lives in Northern California named Isaac. Isaac is half Chinese and half black. Of course, his black mother is a relative of mine. Most holidays, I see Isaac because I go and visit my family in Northern California every year around the holidays. Loves his mother, like most children love their mother. He loves being with his mother. He loves hanging out with his mother. He spends a lot of time in the presence of his mother during the holiday event. My black young cousins and relatives, because of the holidays, Christmas, for example, are bouncing off the walls, opening up gifts, eating a lot of sugar, candy canes, etc. There's lots of adolescent chaos going on. And this is true in most homes around the holidays, so this is not unusual. But comes to the occasion and he's just chill the whole time. He's relaxed. He sees his cousins tearing up stuff, jumping over things, turning lights off and on, knocking down trees, and he's forever mellow. What is important to consider here in terms of the difference between and his black cousins is that Isaac lives with two old world Chinese grandparents and the same kind of culture of honor, culture of respect, culture of thoughtfulness, culture of calm, culture of no chaos, and culture of clarity that he got from his Chinese grandparents, he brings everywhere he goes. The less chaos a child has to endure, the more capacity they have to be clear, to decipher between functional and dysfunctional, and make healthy decisions. These things are issues that I cover in my upcoming book, a book entitled Getting Woke, an instructional guide to making Black America great again. These elements in terms of how to raise black children in ways that are deliberate, functional, and helpful are in the book.
All right. Hello, family. My name is Duke. Checking in for our BMX National Health Education live streams. I'm joined here with my brother Kashama Sankofa. And today's
Peace, family. How
topic
y'all
is
doing?
saving ourselves, Black health, and self determination. What you just witnessed is a video that we're going to break down in a little bit. But as of now, just want to get some housekeeping out of the way. Again, if you are joining us, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube, which is Melanated Solutions Media. And follow up with us, like and subscribe. It helps with the algorithm in order for us to keep this going. If you decide to comment in our sections, you may be shouted out during our family feedback portions of our particular live streams. We will at some point drop a link tonight from our producer in order for you to join in with us. We'll reiterate this later, but just know that we're trying to keep things concise tonight, and we'll ask you to leave your comment or come in, chat with us, but we have to quickly escort you to leave. But beyond that, I think we should get into some of these family feedback section. So the last time we was with you all, we talked about heart disease and how to mend a black broken heart. And I don't have a lot of particular comments for this section, other than y'all praising the poem that I did. Thank you. But we really did go into some of the stories and situations that us as people have dealt with, and realizing that sometimes things happen inside of our bodies where we know that that wasn't right, but we don't do the necessary steps to take care of ourselves, and just keeping it more conscious in our minds in order to be more, caring and loving about ourselves. Did you have something to add to that, Kajama?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly.
All right. Well, in that case, what we all just witnessed, I think we should go into that before we start up current events. What we all just witnessed was a video from the esteemed Dr. Cleo Monago, and just highlighting more of his work in studying Black self conceptual health. And the doll test has been going on for generations at this point. We know that the first iteration was doing the Brown versus Board of Education. It was used in an attempt to convince the government systems at the time why schools should be desegregated. The idea was that if you desegregate schools, then black children would not have these outcomes, and white children would not have these preconceptions about what is a black child as opposed to their white children and white bodies. However, as the dog tests continue to go on, the results have not changed, which shows that desegregation did absolutely nothing to help the self-conceptual health of black children, that some other work needs to happen. And the video is highlighting that. But what are your thoughts about the doll test, Kashama?
I think the most significant thing about the doll test is that it hasn't changed
Mm-hmm.
since integration and a lot of the milestones that we thought well, not we, but a lot of the milestones that were thought to be able to affect and influence black self-conceptual health, it did not. And I think it's important that we look at that and analyze that and understand that just putting black children around white children, or putting black people around white people, or immersing us into white spaces without critical context and the actual intentional affirmation of being black, then you won't get any different outcome than you would if you kept a black person in a more in fact, I think sometimes you even end up with the worst outcome than if you kept a black person in a more homogenous space, black space, and kept them segregated from white people, even with the same messages of black inferiority and white superiority. I i honestly think it does less damage to a person to be insulated in a more homogenous black space.
Absolutely. I see comment section. We got brother John Harris who said he didn't realize it was Friday. Woohoo! Glad to see you here. We're excited, just like you are, brother. I'm glad you now know it's Friday, as it's 7:10 p.m. on the East Coast. But it's good to see you. Thank you for joining with us. So I think another thing that I think about with this doll test is I've been aware of this test for some time now, and being in the work that I do and realizing how often this test, that's something that I realize a lot of my people don't know about, is how often this test is conducted on a more national or international scale. And I believe one of the last times it was done in a major context was in the UK in 2016, and the results didn't change. And this was towards the beginning of Obama's presidency. And so the idea was that, we got a black president now, like surely, surely these preconceptions have changed, and they still did not. And so something that I have been in really forthcoming and asking with my family members, I call them breeders, but all my family members and friends who have children is, look, if you were to do this test with your child, what do you think the results would be, right? And everyone wants to believe that, it would not be what it has shown to be for this particular time. But I always ask them, but what if, right? And what will you do to make sure, this is the key part, what will you do to make sure that your child does not show the same results that has been shown for the past few generations on how black children perceive themselves in this society, right? Um, and that has always been an interesting dialogue. I actually had one father who said that they were stuck when I asked them the question, because they said they never thought about, like, what do I need to do to make sure that my child loves themselves inside of a racist society. They was like, I'm taking care of them, I do build up their self-esteem as far as, like, their goals, and like trying to, convince them that they can be anything they want to be, blah 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 blah. But at the same time, and this is the key point, at the same time, the child is always absorbing these images and these narratives where their life is not valued, right? In a world in which we're currently saying Black Lives Matter, but every month it seems like we have a new national incident of Black life not mattering. And oftentimes the response in our community is, we'll quote unquote protest, but we don't talk to our children about what these outcomes mean. And it's a lot of, like, me being in a teaching environment, I've had to have situations where I had to cut entire lesson plans out because Trayvon Martin or whoever has just become the new national message, and these children want to talk about it and have absolutely no space to do it. And that has been a very interesting thing. We don't talk about what that looks like. The school system is completely unprepared for that kind of breakdown of narrative, and it's not happening at home. So where do these children go? And with no dialogue, they're left to think a few things about themselves that they shouldn't.
Well, one, I think I know we can't spend too much time on this, but I think it's important that people get real about the society we live in. If you get real about that and see it for what it is, that it is an anti-black society, right? That is the default. It's a little bit easier to start thinking a certain way as far as what to talk to your children about. You don't have to be a black behavioral health expert. You don't have to be an expert in history or anything like that to just know that your children need to be checked in on when it comes to how they feel about being black. So when you raising, I like to say raising your children, but you're not really raising children, you're raising adults. They start off as children. You don't raise seeds, tomato seeds, you raise tomatoes. They just start out as seeds and seedlings. But when you're raising black
I love
children,
that context.
oh yeah, because I think that people need to keep the end goal in sight. Like, what type of grown person are you raising? And then think about your own childhood and how it may have affected what type of grown person you became. And what I was about to say, because you brought up people telling their children they can be anything they want to be. Like, that's part of that whole, race neutral, so, like you're in a neutral society, la-di-da fantasy world. Like, I mean, I know I had a lot of options as far as what I wanted to be, but there are some things that I just could not be. You know, like people who know me, if you just hear me on the phone or hear my voice, they meet me and say, "Oh, I thought you'd be much bigger than what you are." I'm like 5'10", 145 soaking wet. So, I couldn't necessarily be what the linebacker for the Miami Dolphins, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think we are getting a lot of these generic, cliche messages that have nothing to do with Black people, or at least we think it do, and we're just passing it on without giving it a critical analysis and seeing what good it does. The whole thing with even with Black representation, people like Barack Obama and Kamala Harris, it's like just having your children look up and see somebody, who's in power, who looks like them, that's not enough to combat the anti-Black messages that they receive.
Your story reminds me, and we're getting ready to move into our current events, but your story reminded me of back in when Trump won the presidency. I say I can see now being in the elementary school system, us telling Black kids, you can be anything you want to be, even the president of the United States. And they're gonna be like, why would I want to be that? Like, because the standard has dropped tremendously. Like, clearly, I can be the president of the United States. Like, clearly now. But I thought that was funny. But another thing is that me and Kashama did not plan this. He is in Florida. I'm in Baltimore. And while we talk, we do not talk fashion sense. But I just thought it was funny that we are both wearing our Value Black People t-shirts today. So if you're interested in purchasing those, you can find them at it's bmxnational.org, right?
Yes, it is.
Let me put it up. It's bmxnational.org. We got a couple of websites and things to keep in track. However, bmxnationalcorrect.org is where you can go online and order these particular shirts. We also have them in red and green, and we also have Make Black America Woke Again red caps. But with that, if you could roll the current events clip, Adam. COVID. So we got another lockdown happening.
Rona.
I can't even. I think the current event was talking about the UK, but we came up with our current events before things even hit further. But in Baltimore, we're going through another lockdown as well. Absolutely.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well,
so
New Jersey is too.
Yeah,
Newark, I believe.
New restrictions. So now it is official, like no more than 10 people public, inside or out. You must wear a mask no matter if you can social distance or not. Things are cracking down. They're showing that individuals the rate of transmission is going up as opposed to down. We got a little too lax in our self-care, it seems. But what's also interesting, I guess we can just wrap in the other COVID topic in this current events. We still absolutely have no idea how this virus works. It's so difficult to protect yourself against something that where the science behind it just keeps changing. So this woman was in Washington, D.C. and was carrying, I think it said 70 days, was carrying the virus. Yeah, carrying the virus for 70 days and showed absolutely no symptoms, had no idea what's going on. Just today, Elon Musk, who is the CEO of Tesla, tweeted out that he had 4 tests conducted today, same machine, same nurse, same time frame, all that. 2 of them came back positive, 2 came back negative. And so it's just, what do you do? Like, at the same time that there's people who consider this a conspiracy theory or a pandemic, which it may very well be, people are still also dying unexpectedly and suffering major symptoms. So it's like we have to be very careful how we navigate this space.
Well, dude, one thing that's important to recognize with the 70-year-old, no, she's not 70 years old. She was older. She was an elderly woman, but she shedded the virus for 70 days as well, meaning she was contagious, even though she had symptoms. And that's important to know because I believe up until now, we did not believe that people were particularly contagious if they were asymptomatic or and the idea of COVID carriers is not completely understood. Now, Keeping in line with the topic, though, saving ourselves and Black health and self determination, I just wanted to point out that depending on where you are in this country, like your government officials may not be under the school of thought that the government should lock down the state or the city or businesses. I can say that because I'm in Florida, and I had the unique experience of being in Baltimore during the beginning of the pandemic, and Baltimore was clink clink locked down, right? Yeah, like 8 p.m.
Gird your loins,
Military
black devil.
trucks,
It was
tanks
done.
riding down the street, right? And even then, some people were still on the streets cutting up. But when I came back down to Florida, this during the same pandemic during in April, it's like night and day. Night and day. People on the beach having large gatherings, no masks in the stores, restaurants open, bars, open. So I think we're at a place where we as a people, we can't just be waiting on the governor or the mayor or whoever to say your city is locked down. I think it's time for us to get within our communities and organize and see how we can insulate ourselves as much as possible, isolate and insulate ourselves as much as possible to make sure that we have our needs met, our daily needs met, as well as making sure that we're safe from the virus. And those are two things. The draw Holmes said economy is greater than people. Absolutely. We don't get too political on this live stream, but I think it's definitely safe to say that money is a huge motivating factor, and the economy is a huge motivating factor. It's a nonpartisan issue. Everybody wants to keep the economy going, and it's a matter of keeping it going and keeping people safe and trying to find that happy middle ground. But we as Black people, that ain't our problem. We should not be looking for no happy middle ground between safety and the economy. We need to be looking for safety and self-determination, our own economic, how do you say,
Base.
shield.
I think what I would offer, and I'm by no means a health professional expert, but what I would offer is that if you are going to be out there having fun, gathering spaces, be absolutely intentional about when you are doing it, where you are doing it, and be okay with the consequences as well. That's another thing that sometimes we don't take into account. Like we want to do certain things, but not deal with the consequences of those actions. So if you know that you're going to be out there, just be careful, wear the mask. It is, when you are around other people, it's a precaution, and we're still figuring this thing out, and we just hope everyone is safe out there. I
Real true
saw in
story,
the
real
current.
quick, dude. True
Mhm.
story, real quick. I got in the Uber, I think, a couple weeks ago, and the policy is that you have to wear your mask. They even send
Yes.
you a message to remind you. I get in the car, and this guy says, "You don't have to wear your mask if you don't want to." I said, "Oh no, hell no, I want to." that's that's a good example of self-determination, people. You don't have to wait till the rules tell you to do something, or if the rules are slack, like you get slack. Like, come on. But
Absolutely,
anyway,
that's important. That's the key one right there, because we wait for permission to protect ourselves. We wait for permission to love ourselves, permission to be safe. No, absolutely work on yourself. Be there for yourself. I saw something else in the current events. If I don't remember if you caught it. What we got stuck on COVID, but there was something else that popped up there. I don't recall at this moment. Did you
in the
remember?
current events,
Yeah.
okay, so we had the lockdown, we had the shatter, the COVID shatter.
Our producer may be able to hit us up with that.
Adam,
And
give us a hint. What was that
but
last thing in the current
as
event?
we as we get ready to transition forward, this topic of saving ourselves in Black health and self determination, this topic was chosen strategically at this point in time because now the election period is over, right? Like we now have our new president, our new vice president, and now it's about, well, what's the next step, right? oftentimes during the election season, I'm so sick of it. Every 4 years, Black people start fighting with each other. Like we start cussing each other out. We start consistently every 4 years. It's like something. It's a routine. So it's a pandemic. But every 4 years, we go through this cycle of maiming and harming each other, saying all kinds of nasty, rude things to each other, on the behalf of usually finding, because Obama was a unique incident, as we know, finding the correct white person to be our representation going forward. And now we have Biden, VP Kamala Harris, and of course, there's controversies around that. There will always be controversies around our particular political figures. I want to make that very clear. But in the midst of self determination and Black health, I think it's important that we start talking about what are the ways that we can start engaging in policy, whether it be locally or nationally or internationally, in order to really take care of ourselves. This is the part that we don't want to navigate or work around. And I think it's super important. Now, in Baltimore, I'm aware of a grassroots think tank by the name of Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. And this particular group of individuals, like I said, it's a grassroots think tank, and they lead workshops, presentations on public policy, engaging in Black community, and figuring out what is the next moves and goals for Black community. And then they go to the courthouses with lawyers, with with lobbyists, in order to push for particular Black agendas. And they got a few things to pass, specifically around the bond bill. And I'm also aware of their involvement with securing money for more youth programming, specifically here in Baltimore. And I'm not aware of other cities with grassroots think tanks in that manner. But because I do know of this one, I do know it can be done. And there is a roadmap and a blueprint. So again, their name is Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. But what I know, you're engaged in multiple different types of revolutionary parties, Kashama. What are some things that you think that everyday people, right?
I think y'all give me a little too much credit, but go ahead.
Not fully dive into the waters, but dip their toes in for a little bit to be more engaged with their public policy and local policy health.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the first step is always getting with your community and organizing. Michael Mishaw said, please name that group again, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle.
Yes, you can find them on Facebook. Absolutely subscribe. They actually just did a live stream breaking down the polling numbers yesterday based on each different ethnic group, now in gender and race, all that.
Now, I will say this. Organizing and being, networking with your community is key. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There are organizations that are on this front who are working nationally as well. We've had Sister Lisa Davis on the live stream a couple times. She's with the Black is Back Coalition's healthcare working group, right? There's also the National Medical Association. A lot of people don't know that the National Medical Association is a Black healthcare advocacy organization. It's a Black medical advocacy organization. I happen to know the director, sister by the name of Dr. Barbara Kane. She is the truth, the real deal, and they have resources. So just get out into your community and see what's out there, and then start looking for resources with people that are already doing the work with these organizations that we named, and you can always look for others. There are a lot of issues when it comes to health that don't necessarily revolve around policy and healthcare as well. On the flyer, you see Dr. Sebi, you see Tabitha Brown. Health initiatives many times can start by what's on the plate and how it gets to the plate.
Yeah. And Adam, if you could help with this, I'm going to mention the name of a website. I actually just found out about this particular website this week. I was in one of those secret white meetings where they're talking about health. and they have a website that helps them locate cost-effective medicine for their patients, even when they don't have insurance. And the name of this website is called needymeds.org. needymeds.org. And if you are in the practice of needing pills or anything for your particular health, whether it may be, check out this website. They do have some cost-effective assistance when it comes to quote unquote modern medicine. So that's just another good little tip. Helping with your Black health and self determination, you can take your health into your own hands. Thank you, thank you. I see them in the comments now. Yeah.
Also do Good RX. I remember that one. It's like a
Good.
website you can go to get discounts on prescriptions.
You said good RX. Is it
Yes.
.com? Let me
Yeah.
check that out. Yep, I see it right here. GoodRx.com.
Yeah. When you said needy meds, that reminded me. I knew it was another one. I just had to look it up real quick. But GoodRx dot com. And also, I mean, you have your local herbal shops and natural health stores. You know, those people are usually knowledgeable people. You can go in there and ask them stuff. That's what they're there for. They don't just hire well, they shouldn't just just hire people off the street that don't know nothing about natural medicine. Also, there's a wealth of information online. You can just go in your backyard or in your city park, in some cases, maybe not in Baltimore, but and find some more natural preserves. Even in cities like Baltimore and Atlanta, I know in Atlanta they have the Cascade Preserve, and in Baltimore you do have like Druid Hill Park, which is kind of open space, and still you can find some areas that are untouched by humans and is safe to pick herbs or whatever. So get into all of that. That's how we control our health and not really wait on your help because
If you, yeah, and if you happen to have a good experience with these particular websites, getting the medicine that you need at a cost-effective rate, let us know so that way we can continue to promote and share good quality stuff with our viewers. But this is definitely some things that we've come across in our line of work. Me and Kashama have stepped out of the hat of social work, but we have done it for a little while. And so these are some of the resources that we have used to help with clients. Additionally, I feel like because we mentioned those things, I just want to mention the Black one real quick. As Kashama mentioned with herbs, do not discount alkaline water, and do not discount the power of a good tea blend. I just dropped off a good tea blend to a friend who was experiencing all kinds of different symptoms today, and we're not sure what they had. It seems more like they had the flu as opposed to COVID because the symptoms didn't match up. But if you go to newsecretstea.com, you can check out a wealth of different health and wellness products, and they ship nationally. Additionally, listen closely. If you use my code ROOT, ROOT of OF IT all ALL, you'll get a 15% discount on anything in checkout for New Secrets Tea. But that's it for those promos. Just helping with some of those things. Going back to the
going back to the what?
I was just going back to the video that we had earlier with Cleo in the doll test.
We definitely need to go back to that. You read my mind.
Yeah. So what were you thinking about? Because
I mean, what I was thinking about is that we're giving all this good info, all these good gems, but if Black people don't value ourselves, if we don't value ourselves as Black people, and we are constantly questioning, our right to exist, a lot of times, doing what's in our best interest just doesn't click.
Absolutely. So I'm reminded specifically in doing the line of social work. So there was this moment because so we've done some work around sexual health, and so there's HIV, and stay tuned for that because we will be having a topic around that because AIDS Day, National AIDS Day, is on December 1st, I believe. And so our very next live stream happens to be just before that particular date, and that will be around some new information to some members in our community around the HIV epidemic. But being in the work in order to try to curb the transmission rates of HIV in the Black community, and we know that it affects Black and Brown communities the highest. Uh, there's always this moment of, well, just wear a condom. This is like some of the terminology that people use. It was the things that was pushed earlier in the epidemic before we knew certain things about this particular virus. And it's still some of the things that we push in the community in general for anyone that's not engaged in the work. But something that we have come to understand is that if you are a Black person that is in question about your self-worth, about loving yourself, why would you do anything that is about protecting yourself? Right. And so we had to constantly meet with funders and these different organizations who were, attempting to curb the transmission rate. It was like, look, we have a bigger issue here, right? We have not only a medical field that is continuously exploited and experimented on Black people, but we have the residual effects of John Henryism, which is the psychological effects of racism in general, and how Black people navigate in a society where they don't love themselves and they can't see themselves loving themselves. So if you don't love yourself, you're not going to do anything to make your life better, because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't correlate. So
with John Henryism, is that like, I'm thinking, I wanted to ask you to break that down a little bit more, because I'm thinking like John Henry and the idea of Black people not experiencing pain and all that stuff.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so John Henryism, and the history behind John Henry is considered quote unquote controversial because they're not exactly sure how he died. But it's a Black man who essentially, the folklore and the messaging is still the idea that he worked himself to death. Now, the science says that he supposedly caught cancer from working in the mines as opposed to literally working himself to death. But John Henryism was a term quoted, and I believe it's Sherman Jones. I need to look up the actual person who quoted this term now. But it was quoted by this doctor, and he said that this is the psychological effect of dealing with racism and trying to ignore its impact on your body and your psychological health, and you essentially work yourself to death. And this working does not always mean physical labor, but it's always about the idea of trying to get a job, trying to protect your family, trying to get the 40 acres and I'm sorry, not 40 acres, but more the white fence with the 2 kids, living your best life, and ignoring all the traumas that you yourself as well as your community face. And so this effect is the idea that living in this society is literally detrimental to Black health.
Yeah, so I mean, we gotta first address, Black health and how we
Mm-hmm.
feel about ourselves. And in order to do that, we gotta look, like I say, we gotta take a clear lens, wipe your glasses, and look at the world around us and realize that this is not a race neutral world that we're living in, or society that we're living in, and it is a society full of anti-Black treatment and messaging. You know what I'm saying? That wears you down. You have to realize that you can't walk around ignoring it and thinking that it don't exist because you ignore it, or you can overcome it because you ignore it. Because what we see are a lot of so-called successful, wealthy Black people who end up dying just like poor Black people from heart attacks, from diabetes, and from
Repeat that.
drug
Repeat that.
abuse, and
Successful, wealthy.
so-called successful.
Well,
Yeah.
success.
So I say so-called successful because success is holistic. If you were a slave to a record label, and they're driving you crazy, how successful are you? You get money, so to speak, and that's even questionable because half the time it's debt and a lot of smoke and mirrors. But there's a lot of so-called successful, wealthy Black people who die just like poor Black people, die the same deaths, drug overdoses, young, for real, die from obesity, complications from obesity. Luther.
Things that we should already know how to avoid and deal with. And things that the truth is that oftentimes we already know the solution. And I suffer from this too, but there's this lack of initiation when it comes to us in our personal lives. I see something that Sonia Ross posted saying that I speak with my clients about this all the time. It's so hard for them to stop and take care of themselves. And I am so interested, Sonia, when we get ready to open up this live stream, I would really, really, really love, and we're getting ready to do that in about like the next 2 minutes, really love for you to come in and mention what are some of the things that you get, if you have any success stories on getting your clients to start taking care of themselves, and what any other challenges that you may have seen that can really start highlighting this for a more general audience, because we know that not everyone, unfortunately, is engaged in their health. And so this may be the first time that some people are even considering that their lack of self-love is preventing them from taking care of themselves. So with that being said, Adam's going to drop the link. Again, if anyone wants to come in, again, I'm encouraging you, Sonia, specifically for your comment, please. But if anyone wants to join in, just know that we would love to have a quick chat with you. And then we have to escort you along because we do have a time constraint as always, but especially today. Yep, the stream is now live.
It's important too to understand that when we do talk about self-love, because a lot of people will, they'll say, well, I do love myself, you know, and consciously they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we talk a lot of what happened, a lot of what we're talking about affects our subconscious, and our subconscious causes us to act on certain impulses, or to even develop certain impulses or habits, because of, you know, the lack of affirmation that we're receiving, the lack of the straight up anti-black messaging and treatment that we receive in this society. A lot of times we may not see that it's hurting us subconsciously, because consciously we brush our hair. For me, we pick our beard out, we moisturize, and put our best face forward, and we think we doing it. We think we popping.
Yeah.
Hey, Sonia.
Hey, welcome back. Real quick, drop your practice for us, because welcome back. We remember you, but we may have some new viewers. Drop your practice.
Okay, my name is Sonia Ross. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and author, and my practice is Full Circle Therapy Services, and we're located in Prince George's County, Maryland.
Okay, so what is a success story that you may have? You said that you have to talk to your clients all the time about, loving themselves in order to start engaging in their health. What are some things or success stories or ways that you got people to be involved in that?
Well, for me, I always start with, as you were saying a moment ago, just starting with really going into the anti-Black messages that we've received regarding our health and taking care of ourselves and the value our body has. A lot of my work, when people come to my practice, they know that this is what I talk about. I talk about it from I decenter whiteness. I push whiteness out the room. I talk about the value in being Black. And I talk about all the harm that was done to us by internalizing these messages. And so for one success story is I had a woman who was a very successful, by our, Western standards, Black woman in a very professional, high level career. But, it was just wearing her down, and she was just really suffering, and it was starting to show up in her body. And after many sessions and about 1.5 years of her, really struggling with physical ailments, not really being able to take the time out of guilt to go to the doctor to see what was going on with herself, she finally started to, as she got more in touch with her body, realized her inherent value as a Black woman and as a Black human being. She said, I don't deserve to feel this way. I don't deserve to feel bad. I don't deserve to feel weak. I don't deserve to feel like I'm weak because I want to take care of myself. And, from there, she was able to transition out of her job. She was fortunate she had the means to do so. And, since we've been meeting and going forward, she was just like, now I can't even imagine what I was thinking, that I thought that was an acceptable way for me to be. That I was just going to force myself into this box. I was going to ignore the aches and pains I had. I was going to not go to the doctor's visits. I was going to be so committed to my work that I was really going to put it over my life. And, we've just really been able to unpack a lot, that it was about anti-Blackness and, the message she received as a woman who she achieved so-called success, that she needed to be grateful for what she had. She still had to keep on working. She had to show up and be, 100 times better as a darker skinned Black woman. And she felt that when she started to undo those messages, she started really questioning that my value is not in my work. My value is in my relationship with my son. My value is in my relationship with my spouse. and just really understanding, the way the anti-Blackness and, the myth of white supremacy had affected her on every level.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sonia. I'm going to share a quote by Zora Neale Hurston. Thank you so much. That was great. Hope to see you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
When it comes to self health and self love and uh, breaking those barriers around protecting ourselves. Zora Neale Hurston had a beautiful quote. She said, "If you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it." And Zora Neale Hurston is a famous author, and I'm reminded of that particular quote specifically because of what Sonia said. It's that moment of saying, "I don't deserve this. I do not deserve to feel this way. I do not deserve to think that I'm not worth it." And a lot of times we think that just because we're not saying, "I do deserve this," or "I do deserve to not feel great," "I do deserve to be traumatized every other week by the police," blah, blah, blah. We're not saying these things verbally, but our silence absolutely contributes to that messaging. The fact that we will not speak out against these particular harms does internalize that pain. And as we mentioned in a couple of our live streams before, especially around the heart knows. The heart is internalizing all of this, and the heart is responding, and the rest of your body is also responding. I'm reminded.
I was going to say, when it comes to that narrative, though, keep in mind that our silence contributes to it, but that narrative is already there. Keep in mind that narrative of Black people. There was the happy, docile, darky stereotype from slavery. There's the singing Negro. That narrative is already there. We're already, the whole world. Well, they, before George Floyd, I would say, but the message throughout the world consistently was that Black people in the U.S. in particular are having the time of their lives, just twerking and doing it up, right? But real quick in the chats, Michael Michaud says, part of what distracts or takes our attention away from self-care and self-love is basic survival in today's world. Nadral Home said, "I started doing guided meditations with my 13-year-old niece recently, and we realized how disconnected from her body she had to make herself just so that she could get through ridiculously lengthy virtual schooling. It made me think about how we push ourselves and our pain down to participate in this society, performing our undervalued but necessary labor. It made me wonder how young we start doing this to ourselves." It says, yes, there's so much that tells us to push down our body's needs for these institutions that will replace you the second it drives you to the grave. That's so true.
Absolutely. And the question about how young it starts is the key thing, I think, in understanding, because what I found, and I did, like I said, I have a workshop on symbolism. And in that workshop, we talk about how doctors and people who study symbols have explained that there are individuals at the age of 3 years old, okay, don't even know how to pronounce their name, knows what the McDonald's symbol means, and they start to salivate because they're hungry, right? And then you think about that in concept when it comes to the doll test. How young do these children have to be in order to start preparing to be anti-Black in the society? And so when we know, because this is the issue, I think a lot of us don't know about how early it starts. We believe that we get traumatized by the time we turn, I don't know, 12. It's like when you go to middle school, it happens so much earlier, and it's because of a lack of dialogue and uplifting. And I think something that we struggle with in our community is that we always say we don't want to have these conversations because we want to protect the kids. And I'm like, I don't know how old Dylan Roof was when he started being racist, but it was early enough for him to be 16 shooting up a church, right? And so it's like, and we, that may be a quote unquote scary topic, but we got to be real about our predicament. We have to be real about how we have to really start engaging in our full body, as Holmes pointed out. We become so disconnected with how we breathe, how we live, and it's an important topic. I want to share something that I'm reading currently. I believe in sharing resources of work. Something I'm reading currently is a book that was gifted to me years ago, but I just started reading it like two days ago, like maybe a week ago. The book is called Citizen, an American Lyric by Claudia Rankine. I'm gonna hold that up for people. And this is a collection of short essays and poems. by this particular author. And I have found, and she is speaking mostly from the perspective of a Black woman. And so her narrative is about Black women. But she also just talks about the Black experience as a whole. And she does a lot of work in here. Rather, there's a segment that really talks about the trials that Serena Williams has been through, and some of the things I didn't, take into account, but how racist the particular industry that she is in, and what that racism does to the actual body. Like, think about how physical movement is impacted by being constrained by doubt, by being constrained by stigmas and prejudiceness. I don't have a quick thing. I feel like I can turn to anything and just point out something. But what I love about this particular book is every page is like these moments of like short racism that we never really want to talk about with other people. It's just like those quick moments where it's just like, did that really? Okay. And then you just move on. But what she points out in this book is all of those moments add up. All of them are weighted. Her name is Claudia Rankine. Miss Shaw, Claudia Rankine, and I know that my thing is probably not centered. I'm trying my
We can
best.
see it.
Yeah, it's focused
Claudia
now.
Rankine.
Claudia Rankine.
Also, Melvin Nesbitt Jr. asked, what was the name of Sonia Ross's clinic? I believe she said it was Full Circle.
Sonia, if you're in the comments, if you could drop that that link again, the name of it again, and that would be really, really great. I do know it was Full Circle something, but
And greetings, Brother Bongani.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, here it is. And this is also a message about John Henryism. So, this is one of my favorite ones. This is a very short moment. She says, when you arrive in your driveway and turn off the car, you remain behind the wheel another 10 minutes. You fear the night is being locked in and coded on a cellular level and want time to function as a power wash. Sitting there staring at the closed garbage door, you are reminded that a friend once told you there exists the medical term John Henryism for people exposed to stresses stemming from racism. They achieve themselves to death trying to dodge the buildup of erasure. Sherman Jones, the researcher who came up with the term, claimed the psychological costs were way too high. You hope by sitting in silence, you are bucking the trend. And so there's just these random moments that I just love that she brings up consistently. She talks about this moment where she was just having a conversation with a white woman with many degrees, and she says, "Wait, I didn't know Black women could have cancer." And she says, and then you just move away because nowhere
Right.
is exactly where you can get familiar with this. And y'all, someone may think that this is crazy or whatever else, but listen, I was in a workshop where I was learning how to test individuals for HIV. And this white woman said to me with a straight face, well, if you find this particular unique coding of HIV strand in a body, that's like hitting the jackpot. And I literally was just like, no, it's not. And she said, yeah, you're right. It's not. I apologize. And then said, after she pricked my thumb because she was testing me in order to see how it works out, after she pricked my thumb, she says, oh, you're a good bleeder. And I said, listen, when I write this poem, it's going to be awesome. Right?
You're a good bleeder.
But it is absolutely true, the amount of erasure that happens in everyday society. And we treat it as if it's just like it's just the condition of the world as opposed to an actual health epidemic. And so with this topic being Black health and self-determination, people, some of the resources, like I said, are already in the beginning of this video. I think people joined us late, and I am going to ask, because we're getting ready to sign out, I'm going to ask if Adam can prepare it again. I would love for that video to just roll again. Dr. Cleo Monago pointed out some of the solutions that we can start integrating into our homes, into our communities, in order to reverse these effects on the Black body. I don't have too much else to say. Do you have something else, Kashama?
No, I think that would be an excellent, I would say, punctuation to the show.
Well, with that being said, this has been Duke. Great to hear and talk from you all. Thank you again, Sonia Ross, for coming in. Again, our next particular health live stream will be around the HIV/AIDS epidemic, so do be prepared for that topic. We have some new information that could really help save our community in general. We used to think it was very like a segregated thing. We used to call it like a gay disease, but it has been very, very clear that it is not. And our community has been heavily impacted. But there has been some new information that can help with curbing the disease, and it is not PrEP. If you have heard that term, it's not PrEP. So, with that being said, my name's Duke, and this is my brother Kashama Sankofa. It's been great talking to you all. Adam, if you could roll that clip again, I think that would be a really, really great sum for this live stream. See y'all next time.
Peace, family.
Did you know that since the 1940s, when Kenneth and Mamie Clark first conducted the doll test, that most black children tested chose the white doll? What do you think may be the factors leading to that outcome? The Clarks provided black children with a white doll and a black doll to choose as their preference. In most cases, since the 1940s up until 2016, most black children choose the white doll as having the best characteristics and the black doll as having the worst characteristics. These characteristics include which doll was the prettiest, which was nice, which was smart, which was bad, and which was ugly. The vast majority of the children chose the white doll as having all favorable qualities and the black doll as having all negative qualities. Given that it's been 75 years since this test was first created and that the statistics have not changed in terms of what preference the black children have had, I think it brings into critical question why in over 75 years. I mean, most recently, for example, we've had a black first lady and a biracial black identified president of the United States. And doll tests were done during his administration and they still came out the same. In this society, there are lots of things that are part of the landscape that black children have to endure that are not problematic for most children, but that are particularly problematic for black children. For example, even if an Asian child is put into the conditions that I will be describing, they might not be as at risk as a black child because most Asians come with their own last name that they've had for thousands of years. They come with a uninterrupted cultural context. When it comes to the Chinese, for example, that's been thousands and thousands of years. And they have a self-contained frame of reference that is there, regardless of what white supremacy-based influences might come into their experience. That's not true for black people. So for black children, in order to ensure that a black child is healthy in this society, there are intentional, deliberate factors that must be put in place to ensure that the child is healthy. And based on the outcomes of the past doll tests and current doll tests, parents overall have not been implementing those factors. So let's discuss what those factors look like. In terms of the importance of deliberate elements to consider when developing a black child to have a healthy self-concept, I'll give an example of a relative of mine. I have a young relative who lives in Northern California named Isaac. Isaac is half Chinese and half black. Of course, his black mother is a relative of mine. Most holidays, I see Isaac because I go and visit my family in Northern California every year around the holidays. Loves his mother, like most children love their mother. He loves being with his mother. He loves hanging out with his mother. He spends a lot of time in the presence of his mother during the holiday event. My black young cousins and relatives, because of the holidays, Christmas, for example, are bouncing off the walls, opening up gifts, eating a lot of sugar, candy canes, etc. There's lots of adolescent chaos going on. And this is true in most homes around the holidays, so this is not unusual. But comes to the occasion and he's just chill the whole time. He's relaxed. He sees his cousins tearing up stuff, jumping over things, turning lights off and on, knocking down trees, and he's forever mellow. What is important to consider here in terms of the difference between and his black cousins is that Isaac lives with two old world Chinese grandparents and the same kind of culture of honor, culture of respect, culture of thoughtfulness, culture of calm, culture of no chaos, and culture of clarity that he got from his Chinese grandparents, he brings everywhere he goes. The less chaos a child has to endure, the more capacity they have to be clear, to decipher between functional and dysfunctional, and make healthy decisions. These things are issues that I cover in my upcoming book, a book entitled Getting Woke, an instructional guide to making Black America great again. These elements in terms of how to raise Black children in ways that are deliberate, functional, and helpful are in the book.